The transport ship descended slowly through the orange clouds of Kesara Prime. Jiho stood at the window and looked down at the training academy below. It was the first time in his life that he had ever left Earth, and everything felt strange to him. The planet below was not blue like his home. It was brown and orange and red, with tall buildings that looked like crystals made of glass. Jiho felt nervous, but he also felt excited. He had been chosen to do something that no human had ever done before. Humans were going to train at the Galactic Survival Academy for the first time. Many people on Earth did not think this was possible. They said humans were too weak. They said humans did not have the right bodies or the right minds for galactic training. But Jiho did not listen to these people. He believed in himself. He believed that humans could do anything if they tried hard enough. The academy was very big. When Jiho walked inside with the other people from his group, he felt small. The walls were high and made of metal that shone like silver. The floors were smooth and cold. Everything was clean and new and perfect. Jiho had never seen anything like it before. Nari, his friend from Earth, walked next to him. She was a botanist, which meant she studied plants. She looked around with curious eyes. She was not nervous like Jiho was. She seemed excited to see everything. A tall figure walked toward them. This was Instructor Kyung-soo. He was from a race called the Venorians. His skin was green and his eyes were yellow, and he had 3 long fingers on each hand instead of 5. When he spoke, his voice was deep and slow and calm. He did not smile. He looked at the humans and did not say anything for a long time. "Humans," Instructor Kyung-soo finally said, "welcome to the Galactic Survival Academy. I have been told that you want to train here. I have been told that you believe you can learn our methods. I have been told many things." He paused and looked at each human one by one. "I will tell you one thing. The rule here is simple. No weapons are allowed on this campus. No weapons in the training area, no weapons anywhere. Is this clear?" The humans nodded. Jiho nodded too. He did not know why Instructor Kyung-soo was telling them this, but he understood the rule. No weapons. This was simple enough. Jiho had not even brought any weapons with him. He did not know how to use most weapons anyway. He was a combat engineer, which meant he understood how things worked and how to fix them and how to build them. But he had never been a soldier. He had never needed weapons. Instructor Kyung-soo continued to speak. He told them about the training program. He told them they would be tested for 1 month on a planet called Zirath 7. This planet was very dangerous. There were plants that could kill you. There were animals that could kill you. There was weather that could kill you. There was poison in the air and poison in the water. If you were not careful, you could die very quickly on Zirath 7. The students had to stay alive for the full month. They had to complete missions and tasks. They had to work together and learn from each other. 12 students will go to Zirath 7, Instructor Kyung-soo said. 8 students will return. This is the way it has always been. This is the way it will be with you humans as well. He looked directly at Jiho when he said this, as if he was telling Jiho this especially. Do you understand what this means? Jiho understood. 4 of the students would not come back alive. 4 of the students would die on Zirath 7. This was the normal way of the training program. This was acceptable to the academy. Kyung-soo did not say this like it was sad. He said it like it was just a fact, like the way the sun rose and the sun set. The next day, they went through the official check-in process. A Krell officer, whose name was hard to pronounce, looked at Jiho very carefully. The officer scanned his body with a device that made a soft beeping sound. The officer checked his clothes and his small bag of personal items. The officer looked for weapons. The officer looked for dangerous things. The officer found nothing. "You are clear," the Krell officer said. "You may proceed to the shuttle area." That night, Jiho sat in his room and thought about what was coming. He thought about Zirath 7. He thought about the month of training and the dangers he would face. He thought about the fact that maybe he would not come back alive. He thought about his family back on Earth. He thought about his mother and his father and his younger sister. He had told them he would be fine. He had told them not to worry. But now he was worried. Nari came to his room and sat down next to him. She was holding a small notebook. She had already filled many pages with notes about the academy. She had written about the buildings and the people and the technology. "You are nervous," Nari said. It was not a question. She could see it on his face. "Yes," Jiho said. "I am nervous. I do not know if I can do this." "You can do this," Nari said. She put her hand on his shoulder. "You are the smartest person I know. You can figure out anything. You can solve any problem. That is what you do. You find solutions to problems." Jiho looked at her. "But they said 4 people will die. Maybe I will be one of them." "Maybe you will," Nari said. "But maybe you will not. Maybe you will be better than anyone thinks. Maybe humans will surprise everyone. Maybe that is why we came here, to surprise them." The next morning, Jiho boarded the shuttle with the other students. There were 2 Krell who had hard skin and looked like big reptiles. There were 3 Jatara, who were tall and thin and had skin that moved like water sometimes. There was 1 Drevnal who was short and had many eyes. There was 1 Orion trader who looked almost human but had blue skin. And there were 2 other humans besides Jiho. Everyone sat in the seats of the shuttle. Everyone was quiet. The shuttle moved up and up and up. Soon they could see the whole planet Kasara Prime. It was so big and so beautiful. Then they moved faster and faster through space. The stars became smeared lines of light. Jiho pressed his face against the window and watched everything go by. Then the planet Zirath 7 appeared in front of them. It was covered with a jungle of dark green and purple. It was covered with forests and trees and plants that Jiho had never seen before. The shuttle began to go down into the clouds. The air became thicker and thicker. Everything outside the window became orange and brown. Then suddenly the clouds parted and they could see the ground. The jungle was huge. The trees were taller than Jiho had ever seen. They had thick vines hanging from them. The ground was covered with plants and flowers and strange fruits. It was beautiful, and it was also very scary. This was where they had to survive. This was where 4 of them would die. The shuttle landed and the door opened. Hot air and wet air and thick air came inside. It smelled strange and green and alive. Jiho stepped out onto Zirath 7 for the first time in his life. His feet touched the ground. His adventure had begun. The jungle was different from what Jiho had expected. It was louder. It was more alive. There were sounds all around them. Birds made strange calls. Insects buzzed and clicked. The wind moved through the trees and made them sway. Everything was moving and breathing and living. It made Jiho feel small and unsafe. Instructor Kyung-soo spoke to them through speakers in the sky. "You have been dropped in the jungle," his voice said. "You have basic supplies. You have shelter materials. You have food for 3 days. After that, you must find your own food or you will starve. You have communication devices that work only for emergencies. You should not use them unless someone is dying. Your first mission is simple. Find a location for a base camp. Build a shelter that will protect you from the weather and from animals. Survive the first week. Then we will give you your next mission." The 12 students looked at each other. Nobody knew what to do. They had trained for this. But training was different from real situation. In training, there was always someone to help you. Here, there was nobody but each other. A Krell named Vexthor began to shout orders. He was big and strong, and his voice was loud. "We need to work together," he said. "We need to find a good place for camp. We need to gather materials. We need to move quickly." The students began to walk into the jungle. Jiho followed them, but he was not thinking about shelter yet. He was thinking about other things. He was looking at the plants and the trees and the vines. He was looking at the rocks and the water. He was thinking like a builder. He was thinking like an engineer. He was thinking about what he could make from the things he saw around him. By the time Vexthor had chosen a location for the camp, Jiho had already gathered certain things. He had collected thin vines. He had found straight branches. He had found rocks that had sharp edges. He had found clay near a stream. He had found fibers that came from plants. Nobody had asked him to do this. Nobody had told him to do this. But he was collecting these things because he had ideas in his mind. "What are you doing?" asked Vexthor. He saw Jiho carrying an armful of vines and branches. "I am going to make things," Jiho said. "Things that will help us survive." Over the next 3 days, while the other students worked on building a simple shelter, Jiho began to create things. The other students did not understand what he was doing. They thought maybe he was wasting time. They thought maybe he was crazy. But Jiho did not care what they thought. He worked slowly and carefully and quietly. He took long vines and braided them together. He twisted them and tied them in special ways. Then he sharpened the ends of branches and tied them to these braided vines. He created something that looked like a whip, but it could be used for many things. It could catch animals. It could pull heavy things. It could help someone climb. It could protect someone if there was danger. He took fibers and wove them into nets. He soaked them in clay to make them strong. He created nets that could trap animals or catch fish. He took branches and carefully sharpened them on rocks until they came to points. He tied these sharp branches to longer sticks. He created tools that could dig or could cut or could stab if needed. He found a type of plant with a very hard shell. He broke it open and discovered that inside there was a material that could be shaped. He shaped it into flat plates that were sharp on the edges. These could be used for cutting things. By the end of the first week, Jiho had created many different things. He had created maybe 20 tools and devices, but still he had not broken the rule. Instructor Kyung-soo had said no weapons. These were tools. These were survival equipment. These were not weapons because they were not made for killing. They were made for surviving. The second week was harder. The food that they had brought was gone. Now they had to find food in the jungle. This was dangerous because many of the plants and animals on Zirath 7 were poisonous. The Drevnal student, whose name was hard to say, became sick from eating something bad. The student became very hot and started to shake. The other students did not know what to do. But Nari remembered something. She had studied plants. She looked at the sick student and tried to figure out what he had eaten. She found the plant. She looked at it carefully. She told the other students that she thought the plant had a poison, but that there was also a plant nearby that could help. She told them to get leaves from the other plant and make them into a drink. The students did what Nari told them to do. They gave the drink to the sick Drevnal student. Slowly, the student began to feel better. The student's shaking stopped. The student's fever went down. After 2 days, the student was almost normal again. This was when the other students began to understand that humans might have things to offer that other beings did not have. But then something more serious happened. The Shadowbacks came. These were the most dangerous animals on Zirath 7. They were large and black, and they had teeth like sharp stones. They hunted in groups. They were very smart and very fast. When they came through the jungle, you could hear them before you could see them. You could hear them breaking branches and moving through the plants. 2 of the Jatara students were out gathering water when the Shadowbacks found them. The animals surrounded them. The students tried to run, but the animals were faster. They were going to be killed. But then Jiho appeared. He had been working on new creations when he heard the noise. He did not think about being careful. He did not think about following the rules. He just knew that his friends needed help. He ran to where the students were. He had made sound devices from hollow reeds and special rocks. He made loud noises with these devices. The sounds were sharp and strange and loud. The Shadowbacks did not like the sounds. The animals' ears hurt. They became confused. They stopped attacking the students. While the animals were confused, Jiho did something else. He created a barrier using vines and branches that he had prepared. He tied the vines and branches together very quickly. He made a wall between the students and the shadowbacks. The animals could not get through the wall. The animals tried and tried, but they could not get past it. After maybe 10 minutes, the shadowbacks decided to leave. They went back into the jungle to hunt easier prey. The two Zhotara students were alive. They were scared, but they were alive. When the students returned to the camp, everyone wanted to know what had happened. Ritala, one of the Zhotara who had almost died, told everyone about what Jiho had done. She told them about the sounds. She told them about the barrier. She told them that without Jiho, they would have been dead. Vexathor looked at all of the tools and devices that Jiho had created. He looked at them for a long time without saying anything. Then he said, "These are weapons. These are not tools. This human has broken the rule." But Nari stood up. "These are not weapons," she said. "These are survival tools. A weapon is something made for killing. These are things made for surviving. There is a difference." That night, Jiho sat alone and looked at all the things he had created. There were now many more than 20. There were maybe 40 different items. Some looked like weapons, some looked like tools, some looked like both. Jiho was not sure if he had broken the rule or not. He was not sure if what he had done was right or wrong. He only knew that his friends were alive because of these things. He only knew that he had survived. The 16th day came with darkness. The sky turned from orange to gray to black very quickly. The wind began to blow harder and harder. The trees started to move in ways that looked strange and wrong. The branches bent in directions that they should not bend. The leaves were torn from the trees and flew through the air like rain. This was the storm. Instructor Kyung-soo had warned them about storms on Zirath 7. But warnings were not the same as experiencing it. Warnings did not prepare you for how scary it really was. "Everyone to the shelter!" Vexthor shouted. But the shelter was not strong enough. The moment the first real wind came, part of the roof blew away. Rain began to fall, hard and cold and fast. The shelter started to fall apart. "We need to make it stronger," Jiho shouted. "We need to use the vines and the branches." While Vexthor and the other Krell tried to hold the shelter together, Jiho worked on something different. He had made special materials that were waterproof. He had tested them many times but never really used them. Now he took these materials and started to build something new. He worked very fast. His hands moved quickly. He tied vines in patterns that he had designed. He created a frame using strong branches. He covered it with leaves that had been treated with special plant oils. "What are you doing?" asked Ritala. She was scared and wet and cold. "Building a new shelter," Jiho said. "Something stronger, something that will keep the rain out." It took him maybe 4 hours, but when he was finished, it was done. It was not a big shelter, but it was strong. The walls were interlocked in ways that made them almost impossible to break. The roof was angled so that water would slide off and not collect. The entrance was small and could be covered to keep the wind and rain out. "Get inside," Jiho told the students. "Quickly, everyone." The students crowded into the new shelter. 12 people in a space that was not very big, but it was warm and dry. The old shelter had completely fallen apart by now. If they were still in there, they would be outside in the storm with nowhere to go. The storm lasted all night and into the next day. The noise was so loud that it was hard to think. The shelter shook and moved, but it did not break. Jiho had built it well. He had understood how the wind moved and how the rain fell. He had built something that could withstand these forces. But on the second day, something bad happened. The communication devices made a sound. One of the students, an Orion trader named Dalvex, was missing. He had been outside the shelter when the storm got worse. He had been collecting firewood for when the storm ended. He had not made it back to camp. "We have to find him," Vexthor said. We have to find him before it gets worse. It is too dangerous, said one of the Krell. We will all be killed if we go out in this storm. We have to try, said Nari. She looked at Jiho. We have to try. Jiho understood what she was saying. Jiho looked outside. The storm was still very bad. The wind was still strong. The rain was still falling. But somewhere out there was Dalvex. Somewhere out there was a person who needed help. I will go, Jiho said. He took some of his equipment. He took the sound devices. He took one of his nets. He took a long rope that he had made from vines. He wrapped himself in waterproof material. Then he went out into the storm. It was harder than he thought. The wind pushed against him. The rain hurt his face. The ground was slippery and muddy. The trees fell down around him. It was like trying to walk through a living thing that was trying to kill him. But Jiho kept moving. He followed the places where he had seen Dalvex walk before the storm. He followed the broken branches and the disturbed earth. He found Dalvex after maybe 2 hours. The Orion was trapped under a fallen tree. The tree was very heavy. Dalvex was hurt. There was blood on his face and his arm was bent in a wrong way. But he was still alive. I am here, Jiho said. I am going to help you. Jiho used his tools to lift the tree. He used his vines and branches to make a frame that could support the weight of the tree. Then he pulled Dalvex out from underneath it. But Dalvex could not walk. His leg was hurt too, maybe broken, maybe just badly injured. Jiho was not sure. So Jiho did something difficult. He made a sling from his vines. He put Dalvex in the sling. Then he tied the sling to his own body. He was carrying Dalvex on his back through the storm. The weight was very heavy. The wind was very strong. But Jiho kept moving. It took him a long time to get back to the shelter. When he finally arrived, he was soaking wet and exhausted. He was barely able to stand. But he was alive and Dalvex was alive. The other students helped him get Dalvex inside the shelter. They dried him and gave him water. They bandaged his wounds as best they could. Nari looked at Dalvex carefully. She did not say anything at first. Then she said something that made everyone quiet. His injuries are too serious, she said quietly. There is damage inside him that I cannot see. There is damage that we do not have the equipment to fix. He is going to die. Everyone was silent. They had known that people might die on Zerath 7. They had been told this. But knowing something and experiencing it were different things. Knowing something was not the same as sitting next to someone who was going to die. Dalvex was awake, and he could hear what Nari had said. It is okay, he said, his voice very weak. You tried. That is what matters. You tried to save me. That matters. Jiho sat next to Dalvex during the night. He did not sleep. He just sat there. He held Dalvex's hand. When Dalvex asked for water, Jiho gave him water. When Dalvex was cold, Jiho covered him with blankets made from plant fibers that Jiho had created. In the morning, Dalvex did not wake up. He had died during the night. His body was still warm when the sun came up. His eyes were closed. He looked like he was sleeping, but he was not sleeping. He was dead. Jiho cried. He did not try to hide it. He did not try to be strong. He just sat there and cried. Nari cried too. Even the other students, who had not known Dalvex for very long, felt sad. They felt like they had lost something. Vexthor said that they should have a ceremony. He said that Dalvex should not just be left in the shelter. So they carried Dalvex outside and they placed him under a big tree. They put flowers around him. The other students said things that they remembered about Dalvex. They said that he was funny and kind. They said that he had tried his best. They said that he would be remembered. Jiho did not say anything. He just stood there and watched. He thought about the moment when he had found Dalvex under the tree. He thought about the moment when he understood that Dalvex was going to die no matter what he did. He thought about how sometimes you could do everything right, and it was still not enough. Sometimes, people died anyway. That was just how it was. After Dalvex died, something changed in the camp. The students were quieter. They worked together more. They understood now that this was not a game. People could really die. People had already died, and there was still more than a week of training left. More people could still die. But something else changed, too. The other students began to respect what Ji-Ho was doing. They began to understand that the things he created were not weapons in the way that they had always understood weapons. They were tools for living. They were solutions to problems. They were ways of turning danger into safety. Vexathor came to Ji-Ho one morning and asked him to teach the others how to make some of the things. So Ji-Ho began to teach. He showed them how to braid vines in the proper way. He showed them how to sharpen branches without breaking them. He showed them how to treat fibers so that they became waterproof. He showed them how to build structures that could withstand wind and rain. By the third week, many of the students had their own tools and devices. Not the same as Ji-Ho's, but similar, made in their own ways, using their own ideas. Because each being was different. Each being had different ideas about what would work best. But then the Academy sent down a message through the loudspeaker system. The message was from Commander Haleth. He was the director of the Academy. His voice sounded angry. "We have been monitoring your activities," the commander said. "We have been reviewing the footage from the cameras in the sky. We have seen what the human has been creating. We have counted the items. We have analyzed them. We have determined that the human has created more than 70 items that could be classified as weapons. The rule was clear. No weapons allowed. The human must be removed from the training program. The human has violated the fundamental rules of this academy." Everyone was quiet when the message ended. Ritala looked at Ji-Ho. Vexthor looked at Ji-Ho. Even Nari looked at Ji-Ho, and she was his friend. "What will happen?" asked one of the Jatara students. "I think they will take me away," Ji-Ho said. He did not sound sad. He did not sound angry. He just sounded tired. "I think they will send me back to Earth. I think this has been a mistake." But then Vexthor stood up. "No," he said. "This is not right. These are not weapons. The human saved my life. The human saved Ritala's life. The human saved many of our lives. This is not a weapon. A weapon is something made for hurting. These are things made for saving." "The rule says no weapons," said Ritala quietly. "But maybe the rule is not correct. Maybe the rule needs to be looked at again." That night, Instructor Kyung-soo came down to the camp. He came in a small shuttle. He was the first adult being that had come to Zerath 7 since the students had been dropped there. He walked through the camp and looked at everything. He looked at the shelter that Ji-Ho had built. He looked at all the tools and devices. He counted them. He examined them. He spent many hours just looking and examining. Finally, he spoke to Ji-Ho. "You have created 94 items," he said. "Some of these items could be used to hurt something. Some of these items could be used to defend. Some of these items are just tools. When I count them, I get 94 violations of the rule. When I look at them, I see something different." "What do you see?" asked Ji-Ho. "I see survival," said Kyung-soo. "I see a being who understood that the only real rule on Zerath 7 is to stay alive. I see a being who found a way to stay alive that worked. I see a being who taught others how to stay alive. I see a being who broke a rule made by people who have never truly been tested by survival." "So I have broken the rule," said Ji-Ho. "Yes," said Kyung-soo. "You have broken the rule. So I must ask you a question. If I had told you that you could use weapons, would you have done anything differently?" Ji-Ho thought about this question. He thought about all the people he had saved. He thought about Dalvex, who died anyway. He thought about the times he had used his tools to defend and the times he had used them to protect. He thought about the difference between creating things to kill and creating things to survive. "No," he said finally. "I would have done the same things. I would have created the same things. I would have saved the same people. The rule did not matter. The rule was just words. What mattered was keeping people alive." Kyung-soo nodded. "That is what I thought," he said. "And that is the answer to a question that has troubled me for 30 years. I have trained students from many different species. I have always believed that the rules were important. I have always believed that following the rules was what made the difference between surviving and just staying alive. But you have shown me something. You have shown me that the real rule is simply to survive. Everything else is just small words." "Will you tell Commander Haleth this?" asked Ji-ho. "I will," said Kyung-soo, "but the commander will not listen to me. The commander will see only that the rules were broken. The commander will see only the violation. The commander will not see the survival. So I have decided to make a change to the final test. This change will prove whether the rules are correct or whether they are just small words." He told Ji-ho about the final test. In 3 days, there would be a mission. 2 students would be sent to a place called the Toxic Cavern. They would have to go into the cavern and find special rocks that were needed for scientific study. They would have to bring these rocks back. But the cavern was filled with poison gases. The cavern was dangerous and dark. Most students could not complete this mission. Most students who tried would die. "You will be paired with Ritala," said Kyung-soo. "She has skills that you do not have. You have skills that she does not have. If you work together, maybe you can both survive. Maybe you can both complete the mission. This is your final test." After Kyung-soo left, Ji-ho and Ritala talked about the mission. Ritala was scared, but she was also ready. She said that she wanted to prove that humans could do what other beings could do. She said that she wanted to prove that the Academy was wrong about the rules. Ji-ho began to create new things. He had 3 days to prepare for the cavern. 3 days to create tools that could help them survive in a place with poison and darkness and danger. He worked through the night. He made new devices. He made breathing equipment. He made lights. He made climbing tools. He made protection for their skin. He made everything that he could think of that might help them survive. By the time the 3rd day came, Ji-ho had created more items. His total was now more than 110 different things. He had broken the rule more times than he could count, but none of it mattered anymore. The only thing that mattered was completing the final test. The only thing that mattered was surviving the toxic cavern with Ritala and bringing back the special rocks. The only thing that mattered was proving that humans belonged at the Academy. The opening to the toxic cavern was like a mouth. It was dark and it seemed to go down forever. The rocks around the opening were smooth and black. The air that came out of the cavern was thick and smelled like something burning. It was not a place that looked safe. It was not a place where anyone would want to go. But Ritala and Ji-ho walked forward anyway. Instructor Kyung-soo was there to watch them. Commander Haleth was there too, standing far away and looking like he did not want to be there. Many cameras were recording everything that happened. This was the final test. This was the moment that would decide whether humans belonged at the Academy or not. Ji-ho had created a special breathing apparatus. It was made from layers of treated plant fibers. It was made from charcoal that he had made by burning special wood. It was made from clay that had been shaped and hardened. Inside the apparatus there were filters. These filters would clean the poison gas from the air, so that when Ji-ho and Ritala breathed, they were breathing something safer. Not completely safe, but safer than the poison gas alone. Ritala had sensors. Her species, the Jatara, could sense electromagnetic fields. They could sense the way rocks were positioned. She could feel where the safe places were and where the dangerous places were. She could navigate through darkness in ways that other beings could not. "Are you ready?" asked Ritala. "I am ready," said Ji-ho. He put on his breathing apparatus. Ritala checked it to make sure it was on correctly. Jiho checked the straps that held the apparatus in place. Everything was as ready as it could be. They entered the cavern together. The darkness came around them like water. Jiho had made lights, too. They were simple lights. They were made from a special fungus that grew on Zirath 7. This fungus made a soft blue light when it was activated. Jiho had collected this fungus and put it in containers made from hardened plant resin. The light was not very bright, but it was enough to see the ground they walked on. The poison gas was like a smell at first. It was like something that made your throat hurt, even through the breathing apparatus. But the filters were working. The gas could not reach them inside the apparatus. They could keep going. "To the left," Ritala said. She was feeling the electromagnetic patterns in the rocks. She was understanding the cavern in ways that Jiho could not understand it. "There are passages that are safer. The rocks are more stable on the left." They walked deeper and deeper into the cavern. The ground was uneven. There were rocks to step over. There were holes to avoid. There were places where the rocks were sharp and would cut them if they were not careful. But they kept going. After maybe 1 hour, they heard a sound. It was like something moving. It was like something large. The sound came from behind them and also from in front of them. Something was in the cavern with them. "Keep moving," said Ritala. "I can feel something large. It is not aggressive yet. We should not make it aggressive." They moved faster now. Their feet were careful but quick. The sound kept coming. The thing kept following them. But it did not attack. Maybe it was just curious. Maybe it was just watching them. The cavern opened into a larger space. This space was like a chamber. It was so big that their lights could not see the far wall. It was so big that their voices echoed when they spoke. And in the middle of this chamber there were rocks that were different colors. These were the special rocks that they had to collect. But between them and the rocks, there was a pool of liquid. This liquid was not water. It was something else. It was something that steamed. The steam coming up from the liquid looked toxic. It looked dangerous. "Can you climb over?" asked Ritala. Jiho looked at the walls. The walls of the cavern were high and they looked very smooth, but there were small places where the rock was broken. There were small places where he could put his hands and feet. It was possible, but it would be very difficult. "Maybe I can climb," said Jiho. "But the rocks are heavy. I cannot carry them down from a climb. I will fall." So Jiho created something new. He had brought materials with him. He had brought strong vines. He had brought branches. He had brought his tools. Using these materials, he created a platform. It was not big, but it was big enough. He built it to stretch over the toxic liquid. It was built from branches that he had woven together. It was built from vines that he had tied in patterns that would hold the weight of a being. It would hold the weight of Jiho and Ritala. "This will work," said Ritala. "It is a good creation." They walked across the platform carefully. Each step made the platform sway slightly. But it held. The toxic liquid was below them. If they fell, they would die. But they did not fall. They made it to the other side. The special rocks were there. They were the size of a fist. They were beautiful colors. They shone with their own light. Jiho and Ritala collected them. They filled bags with them. They collected maybe 20 of the rocks. This was what they had come for. But now they had to get back out of the cavern. Now they had to walk across the platform again while carrying heavy bags. Now they had to navigate through the darkness and the poison gas and everything else that could kill them. Something changed in the cavern then. The thing that had been following them became more bold. It came into the chamber. It was a creature that was long and had many legs. It looked like a centipede, but it was much larger. It was maybe 10 meters long, and it was looking at them. It was interested in them. "Run," said Ritala. They ran. They did not worry about being careful now. They just ran. The creature followed them. It made sounds. It clicked its many legs on the rock. It was trying to catch them. Ji-Ho threw down one of his devices. It was a sound device. It made a loud noise that hurt the creature's ears. The creature stopped for a moment. In that moment, they ran further. They reached the platform again and they ran across it. The platform held their weight even as they ran quickly. The creature came to the edge of the toxic liquid. The creature did not cross the platform. The creature stopped at the edge and clicked its legs, but did not follow. They ran through the passages that Ritala remembered. The darkness was around them, but they kept going. The fungus lights showed them the way. Their feet knew where to step. Their hearts were beating very fast, but they kept going. Finally, they saw light. They saw the opening of the cavern. They could see the sky. They could see fresh air. They ran toward the light and the air and the sky. They burst out of the cavern into the sunlight. They were breathing hard. They were covered in dust and dirt and the colors of the cavern. They were holding the bags of special rocks. They had made it. They had survived. Instructor Kyung-soo was waiting for them. Commander Haleth was waiting for them. The cameras had recorded everything. Ritala removed the breathing apparatus from Ji-Ho's face. She was smiling. "We did it," she said. "Humans and Jatara working together. We did the impossible." But Commander Haleth stepped forward. His face did not look happy. He looked angry. "You used weapons," he said to Ji-Ho. "You used devices that you created. You violated the rule. The cavern test was supposed to be completed without created weapons." But Ritala spoke before Ji-Ho could speak. "No weapons were used," she said. "All of the devices were made for survival. The breathing apparatus kept us alive. The lights helped us see. The platform kept us from falling into poison. These are not weapons. These are tools of survival. And without these tools, we would have died in that cavern." Instructor Kyung-soo stepped forward. "The test is complete," he said to Commander Haleth. "Both students have survived. Both students have completed the mission. Both students have shown that humans and other species can work together and accomplish things that were thought to be impossible. The test has been completed successfully." Commander Haleth did not respond. He turned and walked away. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he did not say it. He just walked away. Ji-Ho looked at the special rocks in their hands. He looked at Ritala. He looked at Instructor Kyung-soo. He looked at the cavern that they had survived. He thought about Dalvex. He thought about all the things that had happened during this month of training. He was alive. His friend was alive. They had survived the toxic cavern. They had proved that humans belonged here. The training on Zirath 7 was over.